those were pretty pointed comments from the coaching staff to say, hey, look, you need to tighten it up on the ice. You are way too undisciplined out there. We've tried to talk to you about this, and you're not getting the message. I don't know what's next, but I would think that maybe some playing time that could be shaved if you're not going to listen to what the coaching staff's telling you. But look, too many reckless penalties. It's hurting the team. But I thought it was pretty public from the coach's sentiment there, from those comments, that he needs to tighten it up. All right, meantime, some other interesting comments around the NHL here. Now let's take a look at some of the rest of the action tonight in the NHL. The Blue Jackets had a tall order to fill as they tried to take two on the road against the Wild. Minnesota played a strong game at both ends of the ice, and as a result, they get the win. The Rangers battled it out against the Sharks. The New York Rangers turned it up to 11 in this one and easily pick up the win. The Predators had their hands full with the Flames. Calgary pulverizes their opponents with a big offensive effort. We got to take a quick break, everybody, but we've got a lot more to get to. Stay with us. Let's check in on some of the final scores across the league tonight. The Wild paired up with the Ducks. Anaheim tightened it up in their own end, and as a result, they get the payoff with a shutout win. The Preds were hoping to take a bite out of the Kings. Los Angeles played maybe one of their strongest games of the year at both ends of the ice and get the win. The Maple Leafs were on the road up against the Panthers. Florida tightened it up late in their own end and did enough to preserve the win. Busy night of action on the ice. Let's take a look at some of the finals that are in from tonight. The Wild played a game against the Avalanche. Minnesota pokes home the winner in the shootout. The Wings took to the road to match up with the Penguins. Detroit turns in a strong defensive effort, enough to preserve the win. The Bees were in tough with the Senators. Ottawa persevered through the night, and they get the shootout win. The story on the ice continues in a moment. And I think one of the other storylines to me that I'm intrigued by is, you look at what we've seen from him, and yes, we all know he's a talented player, but can he win? Can he win the Stanley Cup? And I think that question needs to be asked now because, he's been in the league for more than a half a decade. I like what he said this week, that he's all in, that he is ready to be in it to win it. I think he's going to need his teammates to be in that same mindset as well, right? I mean, he can only control what he can control, but let's see if there's a different player out there on the ice this year because, I think there's a lot of talent there, but I think a lot of people have kind of seen, like, can he break on through to be great, right? There's very good, and then there's great. And I think we're waiting to see if he can make that jump and win the Stanley Cup. All right, to the phones we go. Matthew is on line 4. And the whole narrative and the expression being good in the room, right? Chemistry is important with a team. How many times have we seen teams that are absolutely stacked with talent and they fall apart? Why? Because there was just a disconnect within the room. And I know with some reporters and some of the media members asking the kid, saying, hey, why? How do you endear yourself to teammates more? I don't know if there's ever really an answer. I mean, you can go out and, try to be the best player you can be. That's one way to do it. Personally speaking, I think another great way to do it is buying everybody pizza. Because, who likes pizza? Everybody, right? Everybody loves pizza. Let's go back to the phones here. Let's go to Brent. Brent is online. All right, lots of wild happenings on the ice tonight. Let's take a look at some of the scores of what went down. The Hawks were hoping their offense would show up in a big way against the Avalanche. Colorado treated everyone to a magical offensive display, and they come away with the win. No shortage of action in the National Hockey League. Let's take a look at elsewhere what went down. The Flames had an on-ice collision with the Hurricanes. Calgary puts on a magical offensive display for the win. The Caps look to run roughshod over the Red Wings. Washington terrific in the shootout, and they get the extra point. Don't even think about touching that dial or touching that button. We've got plenty more on the ice, and that's next. Was there any volatility in the standings across the NHL tonight? Well, let's take a look at some of the final scores to find out. The Flames took on the Sharks. Calgary pounds their opposition with a big offensive night. The Bruins were hoping to play spoiler against the Wild. Boston turns in one of their stronger efforts of the year and pick up the win. The Devils took to the ice to lock up with the Sabres. Buffalo perseveres in this one, and they get the victory. We are as cool as ice, and we are bringing you many more stories from the NHL. We're doing it next. All right, at this time, everyone, we'll catch you up on what went down in all the action in the league tonight. The Kings were in a dogfight on the road against the Wild. Los Angeles toughed this one out. They needed a shootout, but they turned it up a notch and pick up the win. A very special guest drops by on the show, and we'll do that next. Well, let's take a look at how the standings were impacted with some of the final scores around the league tonight. The Sharks faced off with the Flames. Calgary puts on a clinical offensive display in the win. The Canucks were in a dogfight on the road up against the Islanders. Vancouver takes this one after coming up big in the shootout. The Flyers were looking to steal 2 points against the Senators. Philadelphia pulled this one out. It went to a shootout, but they get the win. Let's take a look at the scoreboard and what went down tonight on the ice. The Jets took to the ice for a collision with the Devils. Winnipeg topples the opposition with a strong defensive effort. All right, let's take a look at some of the final scores in the league tonight. The Sharks were hoping to fly high on the road against the Penguins. Pittsburgh played their best in overtime, and they get the 2 points. The Leafs were hoping to come up with 2 points on the road against the Lightning. Toronto turns in a complete effort, and it's enough to pick up the win. The Bruins went toe-to-toe on the road against the Red Wings. Boston played pad the stats night, winning easily. Don't go anywhere. We've got much more here on the show. Time to take a look at what happened around the league as we check in on some of the scores. The Blues were hoping to grab 2 points up against the Avalanche. Colorado turns in a strong effort and they pick up the win. The Flyers were hoping to quiet the crowd on the road against the Devils. New Jersey, powerful as usual on the night and a little extra special in goal as they get the shutout win. The Kings took to the ice to battle the Wild. Minnesota triumphs in the shootout, and the bragging rights to go with it are theirs. Hey, I want to bring it back to the man of the hour here. 300 career goals. What a magical celebration. And you know what? The fact that they took a moment to acknowledge it in the arena, a nice ovation from the fans. You know, that's when the hockey purists come out, right? You recognize a nice achievement. You know, whether you love him or hate him, you recognize and a nice ovation in the arena for that particular moment. 300, congratulations. Stick taps all around. All right, still to come here on the show. Okay, everybody, let's take a quick look at some of the final scores around the league tonight. The Habs were on the road to take on the Avalanche. Montreal puts on a show in the shootout, and they get the 2 points. The Flyers were looking to steal 2 against the Islanders. Look, I think we can all agree. We like how he plays. We like the skill set. But you have got to play with a little more fire, a little more compete. You gotta turn that care meter up. Like, you know, find that dial that goes to 11, 11, 11, 11, 11. Turn it up, crank that sucker up. And I think that's exactly the message that the coaching staff has been trying to preach. The skill's there, the talent's there. But man, it is frustrating to watch when it doesn't come together on a regular basis. Back to the phones we go. We got Pedram on line 4.
Be a pro career. Continue. Cut. Play now. Be franchise mode. Continue.